Hello, everybody. It's Dean Treadway here once again at the Atlanta Film Festival. Here with a great new filmmaker named, well, you're not a new filmmaker, but you're new to this festival. Her name is Emile Lobsenz, and her film is The Never Bell, plays tomorrow night. It's part of the puppetry.
Yeah.
The puppetry thing. So, when we were talking about, like, you kind of hopping back and forth between different styles of filmmaking. So let's talk about The Never Bell first. It's what kind of puppetry is it, first of all?
It's rod puppets, and it's sort of a magical realist film. It's about a little girl who's obsessed with a mystical bell, and she lives on a house on a cliff. And it's sort of inspired by the idea, I think it's throughout all types of storytelling, but specifically like Appalachian folklore, like the idea of like the woman as seer, and like, you know, how a lot of times that's subscribed to like witchcraft or whatever, but that, you know, there's a lot of stories, if you think about it, that are about like, you know, this young female character that is sort of knowledgeable about other worlds and stuff. So it's sort of, and then also sort of that her imagination is the biggest part of her life, you know. So her best friend is a ferret, and she talks to him, and just that idea of like when you're little, there's no bounds to that imagination, and so she thinks this bell has magical powers, and so it sort of explores, and you know, this like innocence awakening to realize like deeper truths about what her reality is, and it's sort of, she's in this dull world, but she's able to make it into this sort of magical world. And I think that that's why I wanted to do it with puppetry, and it just sort of occurred to me like a little bit in a journey.
Did you consider doing it live action?
Yeah, and then I just didn't see it. It almost like the story didn't work for me. It's like, you know, I was almost, it wasn't
as magical.
Yeah, and I had a dream, actually. I was actually at another film festival when I thought of the idea, and at first I was like, oh, I might do stop motion, and then I started watching puppetry and paying attention to puppetry, and I was like, I want to try that. And I ended up, through very strange like series of events, getting put in touch with the puppeteer I ended up working with. There was other people I was going to work with before I met her, and it was just perfect. Like I wish she was down here. She was going to try to come, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. But
I'm curious about like also the kind of not just the set design, because we talked about a little bit about your very, very elaborate set, but also things like costume design and things for puppetry. How does that go the same route as, I mean, you sketches and so forth, or?
Yeah, we did a lot of. Yeah, we definitely decided. The sets definitely were much more planned out than the costumes, and the actual look of the puppet and her sort of like demeanor. That was something, and like the hair and the color of the skin and everything. For all of them was something we spent a lot of time working out. The costumes, it was more like a general. We didn't have like a costume designer per se. I mean, we did have someone make costumes, obviously, but I think we did put more energy into the other parts of it, but it was partially because we just had no budget.
Right.
So everything that, like, one of the house that she lives in was designed by a professional architect, and that was only because a friend of mine, like, people would hear I was making this project and just come to me and be like, who's doing this part of it? Who's doing that part of it? And this one friend was like, who's making her house? And I was like, we just designed it in Google SketchUp. And he was like, can I design it? And I was like, sure. And so he made this awesome, I mean, it has blueprints, like you could build the house, you know, if you wanted to, that she lives in. Which was really fun.
And you still have the miniature?
Yeah, I have the miniature, which an architect built. But it was fun for her because instead of having to design a prototype for a house that's usually just sort of white and general and very like, you know, you're
cold,
just doing it for scale.
Right.
She got to give it all of these characteristics because it's sort of debilitated. And, it's a mid-century modern house. But had been sort of like worn down through time. So she really had fun, and she did such a gorgeous job.
Almost like so she dressed it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Like a miniature. And then we had the full size, which the puppets are 1/12, so like basically with Barbie doll sized puppets.
Right.
So the house is like built as a, but I mean it was in chunks because obviously we never filmed like the whole big house at once. But that's in my backyard right now.
So that's interesting about how do you direct the? I mean, were you one of the puppeteers?
No,
or
I did end up
learn
puppeteering
anything?
one scene
Okay.
because our puppeteer couldn't come. But it was only like a feet scene, very simple.
Okay.
But
like an insert.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But do you mean like how you decide?
Yeah, well, I guess what would be your direction towards the puppeteers in terms of movement and so forth? How would you? I mean, I know you have to direct actors, but how do you direct a puppeteer?
I mean, very much in a similar way, and that's what's so incredible about that. I mean, I really want to make another puppet film is because it's one thing to tell an actor, you know, like to ask them for something different or to try and bring them into a role or work with them in developing something. Working with a puppeteer, it's almost to a whole nother level because you're asking them to bring to life this. Either sometimes, you know, you only used the legs, like because we had, you know, each part of the body and then we had the full body, and then like big scale heads for close-ups and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to ask her, like, you know, to say things like, well, make her, you know, she has to be scared here or whatever it is. And through the way in which, like, Jesse and the other puppeteers involved in the film sort of manipulated this object, you could have a movement go from being silly to being, you know, very scared, and it was the face the face didn't move.
The face
so people
change.
would be like, "Oh, how did you have so many different?" And I'm like, "It was lighting and like sensitivity of the puppeteers.
Yeah,
they're incredibly like sensitive." And it's funny. I wish we'd recorded the entire sound of making the film because the film's narrated with like very complicated sound design and really great musical score that was also. Original score written for the film, but the puppeteers, they get into the role, but they do it, you know, so they're talking to one another,
right.
but like but they say really funny things, so it's very funny. They're very silly people, and
I was friends with some puppeteers in school, and they are unique individuals.
Yeah,
Just...
they're really funny. They're really weird, and they know it, and they're so proud of it, and I love them.
That's true. They are.
Yeah.
They are ridiculously proud. We'll get to some of your other films, but are you surprised that a film festival like Atlanta has an entire block of films?
Yeah.
And it's not only this year, but last year and I think the year before as well is when it started. The whole block of films is all puppetry.
Yeah, which I think is really exciting because, I mean, I got to visit the Puppetry Arts Center, which was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great that there's a whole community around it down here. I had no idea.
Right.
And then coming to the festival, I get to see all these other puppetry films, which is great for me because I think a lot of people that make puppetry films, you know.
Right.
And I'm sort of coming from a totally different world. So it's great to be exposed to all these different styles of puppetry, these different ways of telling a story with puppets, why they're using puppets. But it's great to have a festival that, you know, enjoys that among other, you know, great films.
Yeah. I used to program a film festival, and we had some puppetry films in that film festival. This was about 10 years ago. And I said to my jury that these are live-action movies, but they wanted to consider puppetry animation.
I'm in animation in some festivals.
Yeah.
I'm in the animation
Do you
category.
find that weird?
Yeah, it's the opposite of animation. Like,
It
I mean,
is.
it's not. If it were stop motion, which a lot of people also think the film is, because we did a lot of work to try and not completely hide the rods, because obviously, like, these are puppets and you don't have to, you know. But for the most part, you don't see rods, and it was because of the way that we did a lot of, like, you know, fun tricks and shooting it. And a lot of it was figuring it out on the fly, which was fun.
Did you erase the rods?
No,
in
not at all.
post?
There's like almost no post on it.
Because I love seeing the rods,
Yeah.
actually. I think
Yeah.
that makes it charming.
Yeah. So
in a way.
some scenes you do, but other scenes we wanted to really bring you into her world, and texture was such an important part of the film that we really wanted, and sound, because like children are so like tactile, so we really wanted to like sort of embellish all of those senses that children like. They want to touch everything, and every sound they hear, they imagine it's disembodied from. So we thought, having some of the rods in there so that you're still like paying tribute to the art form we're using, but then also not having the film be typical in that, like, you're calling attention to it, I guess. I don't know. But which makes a lot of people think it's a stop motion film. I've gotten a lot of compliments on as a stop motion director, and I'm like,
oh wow,
I'm not.
It's the smoothest stop motion I've ever seen in my life. It's incredible. How did you do it? You should just say thank you.
Yeah, I do. I'm like, I got a job, like one job I got because they were like, you want to work with a stop motion director? I was like, sure. Like, that's what I do.
Next thing, Aardman Productions or Phil Tippett or somebody's going to be calling you. Okay, so puppetry isn't the only thing you do. I mean, you're talking. You have a couple of other films that are not in this film festival, but I know you're flying back to New York soon. Yeah. To go to where are you showing there?
So that is actually an event we're creating based on a feature documentary I made in the Basque Country, and it's called "Song of the Basques." And it's
Spain, right?
Yeah, northern Spain, southern France, border on the Pyrenees, like where the Cantabrian and the Pyrenees meet. And I lived there for 5 years, and totally fell in love with the place, and just started recording stories. And so one of the ways the film was really meant to like portray the spirit of the culture through like the contemporary stories of Basques. Doing all different things. Like one guy's a musician, one is actually there's a couple of musicians in the film. There's a shepherd, a farmer, a sculptor, and as each of them sort of invite you into their world and you sort of get absorbed into what they do and how they live their life, like you kind of get this backdrop of like the rich history that they're sort of preserving just in their way of being. And I really wanted to embody like the spirit that I felt there, like the energy of the people. So the film is not like, which it's, I think a few years ago was problematic for people when I was making it, like that it's not very traditional in its way of giving a portrait of a place, because it's not like, this is a fact. Like there's actually not really facts in it, because it's about like almost like the mythology of the culture. But so one thing we're going to do that I've always wanted to, because I'm interested in interactive film, both like online but also in like spatial, like almost like a mix of installation.
An installation, yeah.
So I became really good friends. The Basques are very famous for their cuisine, and I became very good friends with the owners of an incredible Basque restaurant in New York when I was, when I made this film. And so we are going to recreate the Basque Cider House, which is a very strong tradition in their culture. It starts in January and goes through like the end of spring. And it's, it always happens on orchards. And so we basically are recreating the Basque Cider House in New York City for one night only. And going to have interactive projections that inform the meal. So each course is sort of like the things you're seeing, and they'll be screened in different ways. Like one room has actual like narrative stories from characters in the film. Another room, it's more about sound and like images being projected on all of the walls around you. There's another artist collaborating with me who's from Peru, and she's doing almost like a Basque tarot based on the mythology, which is very like Mother Nature based, because this project that we're doing tomorrow is, it's really also meant to like highlight how important your environment is, and upstate New York has a very similar environment to, and so does northern Georgia, so maybe we can do one down here, but to the Basque Country. So like
it's kind of tropical here.
But isn't there like orchard, and someone was telling me that I've actually never been to northern Georgia, but like someone was telling me that it's that like if you go north of Atlanta, it's very like I don't know, it almost becomes like more woodsy and apple trees, and so that idea that
beautiful rivers,
and I think you get the energy of what your culture is. I think you get that from your environment. I think cultures are very much informed by their environment, and so like the idea that we cider is becoming very popular again in America and around the world as not this like sweet sort of fake drink. It's more like this, could be a very refined beverage, which it had been in America a long time ago. So we're basically using a lot of the local ingredients, working with Basques and local artists to share all these different elements of Basque culture through this ancient Basque tradition. Or I don't know if you want to call it ancient, but this long-held Basque tradition of the cider house. And it's all about community as well. So the dinner is very much like, you're sort of like at a table with people and people are going to move, almost like you're at a huge dinner party.
Right, like a family-style dinner.
Exactly.
Almost.
So we're following the traditional menu and there's going to be music
That's also
involved.
something that's very North Georgia.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think rural communities, there's, even this film that I have here, The Never Bell, one thing that got me started thinking about it was about this idea of like the seer and the sort of why there's witches in rural cultures, was the idea that in the Basque Country, it was a mother-based mythology and religion, Mother Earth-based, and there was really significant witch hunts there in the, I think, 17th century, and part of that was that these women were sort of like naturopaths, like, healers, and that was Christianity took hold very late in the Basque Country, and so it was sort of almost like Christianity being like, oh, these women are witches because they understand that like this ointment from this tree bark will do this to your skin. It was more, no, they just understood their environment, and so that idea that when you're in tune with like a certain like spirit of your environment, you can be portrayed as like almost like evil or a witch or whatever. And so that's The Never Bell is a little bit about that, about how this little girl is in tune with her imagination, is so open that she's in tune with this part of the world that we kind of are taught to shut out, because like
here's my question to you: do you kind of feel that way? Do you yourself feel that way about your own imagination?
I like to invent. I mean, like I'm a filmmaker. Like I like to invent stories, which is also why I also like to make documentaries, because I love listening to people and hearing their stories and like exploring their worlds. But then I also like when I don't like making up stories and like inventing. I mean, I wasn't allowed to like watch TV when I was growing up. I have 5 siblings.
Oh, you're one of those kids.
Yeah. So we
That's
just
actually
made
good.
Yeah, we made up stories. I mean, we just had the weirdest games we played, like the songs we would, like whenever we were bored, we talk about the things we did growing up, and people are like, "You guys are so strange." And it's like when you put 6 kids, like lock them up together and don't give them, like so yeah, it's But yeah, so this event tomorrow is a bit of an experiment. We'll see what happens, but if it's a big success, hopefully we can do more of them. And then that's based on a feature film. So hopefully it can even pair up, sometimes screen the full film, and then another day invite people to like another experience around the film. So we'll see.
Sounds very incredibly unique and complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated, especially when they're like setting up projections in New York right now and texting me like this, that, and the other, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm in a screening. Like,
I'm on an interview now, please.
Yeah, so, but it's good.
Well, you had some time to watch some movies. I know that we just got out of watching the new Mavericks series. That was a really great series. It was great last year too, and it was similar films, or similar types of films. So that is to say, they were all directed by women, and they're all about young women. Yeah. Which feels incredibly fresh to me. Like you never get to see a young woman's perspective in movies. Like very rare. Yeah. Very rare. So it's like a complete breath of fresh air. Do you see that getting better?
I think so. I hope it. I'm a very positive person, and so I like to be like jokingly cynical about things, and so I always say
so be jokingly cynical first, and then be positive. Let's
if you read the history of you read it, like for instance, what people thought were gonna, how women were like making such great grounds at in 18th century or in the 1960s or like whatever, and then it's like, and then someone was like, yeah, shut up. So it's like we get on this like arc where people are like women in film, women power, and a lot of fields. Like I do branded content, and because making puppet films doesn't make you really rich, surprisingly, and I work with I end up getting involved in a lot of food projects, and there's a lot of women organizations for women chefs, women in food and wine and stuff. So you're seeing this in different industries, like women. Like I know I do in tech, like a lot of women in tech, and you see all these industries saying like, let's embrace that women can be more than this, or sports. Like I grew up playing sports, and I wanted to be a wrestler because all my brothers were wrestlers and my parents were like, no way. And now there's incredible female wrestlers.
Yeah.
But my parents, that was the only thing they ever told me I couldn't do because they were like, you're going to get, like they were worried.
There've been female wrestlers for ages, like since the 30s, 40s,
Yeah, but...
The documentarian Ruth Lightman did a great movie about female wrestlers.
Oh, I have to look that up. Yeah. But it was definitely even being
Lipstick and Dynamite is what it's called.
Okay. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that in every field, I feel like, people are starting to say like, wow, like, yeah, you should, like they can do this too. And wow, you are 50% of the population. That is funny that only like 3% of you are doing this thing. And so it's really exciting. I hope we keep kicking ass like that. I hope people, and it's great. I have to say, like, I think it's a very important thing, and that men embrace it as well. And I think it's like we need it to not be like just
the voices of women.
Yeah, saying we need more women's voices, and men being like, okay, I'm going to be polite and listen, and then like turn the other way.
We say it on this show. Well, at least I say it on this show all the time on Movie Geeks United that female voices are just absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like the entire industry, and I'm talking about studio movies now, there's always great movies being directed by women, features directed by women every year. I see many that are very good. But studio-wise, you don't see very many at all. And they really need to get a grip.
Yeah.
They really need to get a grip because everything is being sort of blanded out by the male voice, I think. And there's just no... I'm so tired of seeing movies about fathers and brothers and sons and everything.
Yeah.
Where are the mothers and the daughters and the sisters?
Yeah. Making dinner.
I hate it.
But there's also, I should say, there's this group, really awesome group that I'm a part of called Film Fatales, and we... hopefully there's a new chapter of it starting in Atlanta, but it's this group that's just sort of grew organically, and it's basically... and now there's chapters in New York, LA, London, Sydney, like all over the world, and they're like totally not volunteer, but they're almost like a collective of women who we meet once in at the beginning of the month, on the first Monday of the month, and we have dinner parties, and we like try and help each other out with stuff, and we talk about some specific thing, and and then just hang out, and everyone sort of we share resources, we give recommendations, and it's such like those kinds of groups can get really complicated because there's no like president and there's no but it's just so well organized and really well put together, and I'm really excited for a chapter in Atlanta to start because I've met so many incredible female filmmakers here.
That.
There's a lot. I've met so many interesting women here, and so it's very exciting. I think it's.
You think we'll ever see like a blockbuster movie, like a kind of like a?
Well, I want to make a superhero.
Do you think women are interested in making a superhero movie?
I am.
You are?
Yeah, superheroine. Yes, and I want to make a spy thriller as well.
Okay.
But I think we're totally interested in that. I think not every woman, but just like not every man is interested in that. I just think that it's. I think it, and I also think that it's funny that they say like, oh, well, that kind of film like doesn't make big money, and you're like, you don't know, you've never made one. Like,
right.
How do you know that like nothing is making money right now, Hollywood? Like, so what? And so I think that I do think there are plenty of women that want to make movies like that. We're just not like. It's funny, but if you're kind of told like no, women don't make superhero movies, then like maybe a lot of women wouldn't.
Do you think it has something to do with just the whole all of the grips and all of the a lot of the camera people and the lighting people and so forth and the special effects people are men and that they don't want to take orders from a woman? Is that what it is?
Well, that can happen for sure. I was just talking with Allie, who had a short in New Mavericks, and she's an AC. As like her, outside of directing work, she does a lot of AC work and obviously shoots a lot of stuff too. And I started working as an AC when I first, because I wanted to like, be a DP. you go either way, where either I would get hired on shoots, and I learned, I worked in a grip, because it was when I was trying to learn, because I didn't go to film school, I knew I could get jobs in grip, because they always need grips, and a lot of places, sometimes it would be like, a woman grip, no way, and then other places were like, a woman grip, hire her, like, whatever rate, like, because they thought it was so cool that, like, a woman was doing this thing that and I didn't even think about it, like, I have, 4 brothers, so I was like, I'm always doing but, like, it is I do think that you can have, I think it's like 2 spectrums. I think it's either men who do not want to listen, or other men who think it's awesome that a woman is doing something not traditionally, that's out of the ordinary. And it hopefully will stop being out of the ordinary, because there's no reason we shouldn't be great ACs or great DPs or great grips, and
there's still never been a woman nominated for Best Cinematographer.
I know. But
that's the one category that there's never been a woman nominated in.
It will happen. I'm a new feature I'm working on. I've worked with the same DP for 2 of the 3 films I have out right now, and I was talking with him about working on it with this new film I'm making, and then I was like, I'm going to work with a female DP. Like, I'm going to make that deliberate decision and do it, because there's so many great female DPs out there, and I was like, I'm on it, like, I don't know, so
The woman that did Wildlike, you'll have to look up her name, but it's escaping me right now. But the movie that was here at the festival, Wildlike.
Okay, yeah, I'll look that up.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of really great female DPs out there. So
yeah,
they'll start getting the attention. But that's definitely a male dominated field.
Right.
So, but
okay, so you've got the movie tomorrow. Say the name of the movie again.
It's actually today.
It's
the Never Bell.
It's at 5 o'clock today.
Yeah.
This will post in a couple days.
Yeah,
so
it's fine.
But okay, so that's today, and then Song of the Basques.
Yeah.
And then what? There was one other.
The third one is called Sanderkraut.
Uh-huh.
And that one was really. I want to develop that actually into a TV show. But I made it with a friend of mine. I co-directed it, which was really cool to do. Because oh my god, it makes life so much easier. But we also we worked really well together, and that is about a famous food writer named Sander Katz, and he's a fermentation guru. And so it's just like a 12-minute piece, sort of like a window into his life, and he's a fascinating character. And I want to do a travel show. He talks about fermentation, but it becomes about much deeper stories. Like it's much more. A lot of people like it because they think it's going to be a food documentary, and then they're like, it gets into these very complex things about life and death, and
I can see that happening. Yeah.
So he's just so I adore him. He's wonderful. He lives in rural Tennessee. We were hoping to get into this festival, but we're in Nashville. Both of the Never Bell and Sanderkraut actually are in a lot of film festivals together. Okay. So Ann and I joke that Nell and Sander would really like each other. So.
Well, I'm impressed with your wide range of filmmaking abilities, and I will be checking out your movies.
Yeah.
So I just for full disclosure, I haven't seen the movies yet. So that's something I don't usually do. Interview before I've seen the movies, but Emily is an exception to the rule. So Emile Lobsenz, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Very great. Yeah, and I hope you have fun at the rest of the festival.
Yeah, fantastic.
I bet you're going to have fun tonight at the screening. Anyway, for Movie Geeks United, I'm Dean Treadway here at the 2015 Atlanta Film Festival. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.